Hola. The movie we're talking about today is The Skin I Live In. This is a Spanish movie, revenge psychological thriller flick by Pedro Almodovar. If I can pronounce that correctly, I am not a Spanish speaker, although my girlfriend is Puerto Rican. This guy, I've never watched any of his films before, but apparently he's worked with Antonio Banderas before, and this is supposed to be like when they came back together after a long period of time. And I will say that Antonio Banderas does an amazing job in this film. This movie is really interesting, and I know maybe some of you guys haven't seen it because it's a little more rare. I mean, I know for a little while the clips were going big on TikTok, so maybe some of you young kids know about this movie, but if you actually haven't seen it, I'm about to describe it for you.
¡Párate! Y tírame la llave de la puerta o soy te rajo. ¡Que te estés quieto!
So, The Skin I Live In. At the beginning of this movie, it opens up and we're introduced to our main character, Antonio Banderas, Robert. He is a plastic surgeon who's revealing to a group of other scientific surgeon dudes that he created a new form of human skin that is extremely resistant to things like burning and insects and bullshit like that. Then we are introduced to Vera, who is this woman who seems to be locked away in a room with a weird sort of beige colored suit that goes over her whole body, which looks to be at the manor in which the scientist Robert lives. Additionally, we're introduced to Maria, who is Robert's servant back at his house that knows about Vera and helps him, make sure nobody else knows about it and helps around the house. So she sort of is the primary one who feeds her and watches her while he's away working, doing surgeon shit. We come to learn that Vera has like the special skin that he's been working on. Then one day, while Robert is out, first of all, they fire the rest of the working staff and they all leave, like kind of out of nowhere, right? They're like, I don't know what's happening. And simultaneously, a tiger walks across the street. You're like, what the fuck is going on? And we're introduced to this character, Zeka. Zeka is Maria's son, and this movie's weird. I mean, if you look into the director's past history of movies, you'll see that he kind of plays or has melodramatic movies, so it's kind of like overly acted and kind of strange. So Zeka, he approaches the telecom thing in the front where you can like see through a camera and like talk through it, right? And Maria's like, who's this in the tiger costume? And he's like, oh, it's me, Mom. And she's like, what are you doing here? Like, I don't want to see you. Like, because he's clearly something's up. Like, it's not just normal mother seeing son type of thing. So he does like a weird, like, Mom, look, remember when I was a little boy and I was dressed like a tiger? He like does like some weird bullshit.
Mira, como el disfraz que me ponía de pequeño. ¿Te acuerdas? Tigriño.
The dude plays with her heartstrings, you know what I mean? And then gets her to let him in the house. And so, she lets him through the gate. They meet each other and they like reminisce for half a second. And he's like, listen, I need food. I need somewhere to stay. And she's like, you can't stay here. What the fuck? But eventually she gives him food. So he comes in and they're sitting down together and they're watching TV. And on the TV, it says some dude is arrested for robbing a jewelry store. And it shows his face basically on the TV. And then he's like, oh shit. And his mom sees it and is like, what the fuck? And he's like, all right, listen, I need somewhere to stay. Can I stay here? And she's like, no, you can't stay here. And all the while, by the way, in the background, there's like screens where they watch Vera and she's kind of like doing bullshit like yoga or something. And then Zeka is like, if I kidnap you, will Robert let me stay here? Blah, blah. They're kind of going over it. And then he's like, oh shit, who's that on the screen? And she's like trying to hide, like, nobody. And then he's like, oh shit, that kind of looks like Robert's old wife. What's she doing here? I thought she died. And the mom's like, no, that's not her. No. And then Zeka, ties up the mother and then goes up, tries to find the girl, Vera, because she's locked away in her like portion of the mansion. And then this tiger-dressed man finally finds Vera, opens up the lock. Vera tries to fight him and get free of like her, she's being trapped in this house anyway. So this guy kind of opening it is a good thing for her. She tries to escape. He keeps her down. And then guess what he does? It ain't nice, okay? He does a little bit of an R thing on her, but she tries to play along kind of because, she's a victim living in this house as well. So she's like, oh, maybe if I let him do this, I'll be able to escape, whatever it might be, right? They return to her room where there's a mattress where she sleeps and they do the deed there. And then towards the end of it, Robert got home, finds Maria, goes upstairs with a gun, finds him just basically finishing and like passing out on top of Vera. Vera's like, oh shit, and like can see him. Robert's like, fuck this bitch, boom. fucking shoots him. Vera's fine, gets up. He kind of protects her because we can tell kind of there's a vibe between Vera and Robert that like Robert kind of likes her a little bit too much, and Vera kind of, you know, I don't know Vera's vibe yet. You know, you can't tell. But it returns, and Robert has disposed of Zeka's body, and Maria's not too upset, which is weird. First of all, that's your son. I don't know what the fuck's going on there. They're at like a fireside situation with Vera. Vera's let outside, so she's kind of like being allowed to have more freedoms. And Maria, while Robert is gone, starts to tell her the story of what exactly just went down, who Zeka was. She just kind of has like a flashback sequence where she kind of explains everything that's happened up to this point. So Maria reveals that Robert is also her son, but is actually, she had like an affair with somebody that she used to work for. And so when she had the baby, she just kind of gave it to them. And Robert never knew that like she was his mother. And Zeka knew that that was his mom, obviously, but they never knew that they were brothers, right? Robert was obviously like of a higher class family. So he went to medical school, did his whole thing, met a girl named Gal, which he named it the skin after, that he was, you know, showing to everybody earlier in the movie, who looks obviously exactly like Vera. And unfortunately, Gal was a little promiscuous, and when Zeka returned after being away for a while, I don't know, doing crimes and shit, Gal ran away with him, like left Robert and ran away with him to go be with him. And obviously like they had sex and stuff, which is no good. And when he ran away with them, they got into like a major car crash that like exploded into fucking flames, and Gal was burning, and Zeka left her for dead.
Tuvieron un accidente de coche. Zeka se salvó y huyó.
And somehow, I don't know, this doesn't really make sense, but Robert heard about it and got to her in time to somehow save her life, even though she was burning in the car. Like, I don't know. That's why Zeka was like, why is Gal alive? When he was looking at Vera earlier. Gal was like extremely burned, right? And so because he's already a plastic surgeon, he did what he could. He, you know, obviously other people did what they could, and she survived, but she was completely fucked up. So he would have her pretty much locked away in the house, Gal, like kind of, you know, for her own good, because he was afraid of if she saw her own reflection, she'd be upset. And they had a daughter, Norma. And so, you know, it kind of cuts to the Gal, you know, recovering in her bed and like all fucked up, but like you can't really see her. They apply, you know, as much medicine and stuff as they can, but they keep her in the dark so that nothing bad happens, so she doesn't get upset about herself. So she's sitting there, and out the window, she hears her daughter singing like some tune, some nice, friendly little tune. So she goes over to the window, opens it up, boom. There's a reflection in the glass of the window, and she sees herself. She's a fucking fugly, duggly little monster. She's like, ah, jumps out the window, fucking dies, right? Right in front of her daughter. Norma's like scarred for life. But anyway, come back to reality, right? It's Maria and Vera talking to each other. Robert's finally kind of back. Robert has decided that this woman who isn't Gal, we know it's not Gal yet, because we just figured out that Gal is dead, even though they look identical. They agree to be lovers now. So now that they're like lovers, they both go to bed together, right? They're like, kissy, kissy. And Maria's kind of like, I don't know about this. Like, she's been locked up all this time. Why are you letting her out now? This kind of doesn't make sense. We still don't know who really Vera is. Like what the, you know, maybe she was just kidnapped and he's been putting his little skin experiments on her. That's kind of what you assume at this point. So these two lay down in bed together, right? They start fading away into another flashback sequence where they're going to explain some more stuff. They show that Robert goes to a wedding party and he sees his daughter having a good time. We learn that his daughter, after her mother's situation, ended up, you know, having a really hard time socially. So the fact that she's at this wedding party is supposed to be like a nice big deal. Like, you know, she's getting back out there. He sees his daughter kind of flirting with this guy, and you know, he's kind of wary of it, but he lets her be a child. You know what I mean? He's like, all right, whatever. And then later on, he leaves the party and he's looking for his daughter. He's like, where'd she go? And he goes outside and he sees like a little moped, like a motorcycle fly by, zoom. And he's like, all right, I don't know what the fuck's going on. He follows kind of deeper on down that little road, and he sees his daughter laying out under a tree, like passed out. And he's like, what the fuck? Runs over. He goes like, Norma, wake up. And as she's waking up, she looks at him and starts screaming like, and starts fucking fighting him. And then it flashes forward even further, and she's at a institute again, and this time he's trying to visit her, but every time he visits her, she just freaks the fuck out. And the doctor tells him like, hey, like, you just make it worse. Every time you come, she associates you with what happened to her, which ends up being SA. And so the dad's like, I don't know what to do. Like, you know, he wants to visit his daughter, but he can't, you know, it's kind of crazy. And so after his last visit, he goes home, and shortly thereafter, he gets the news that she also jumped out of a window. Fucking ended her own thing going, you know what I mean? Like mother like daughter, it was not a good vibe. Simultaneously, we cut back and we see the boy that she was talking to at the party, Vicente, we learn his name. You know, we see some of his story and we see that he grew up with his mom and some other woman working at a fashion store that his mother runs. And he talks about how this dress is going to look really good on you to the other woman. And she's like, why don't you wear it? And he's like, I ain't wearing it. What the fuck? And then he goes, well, I'm going to this party, see you bitches later. And he pieces out. So then it shows him at the party and we get more details on what happened between them. You know, they're flirting, whatever, and they're hitting it off. They're having a good time. And then all the kids go outside basically to have sex in the woods. He asks Norma, I'm high as fuck right now. What do you want, bitch? And she's like, oh, me? I'm on. And then starts naming off all of her prescription meds that she like just takes because she's so innocent. She doesn't understand. And he's like, oh, sick. So they start hitting it off. They're making out, whatever. They go under a tree. You know, they start getting frisky. And at first she's like chill with it, whatever. And then for a second while they start to actually have sex, she kind of gets like a flashback of her mom and like just gets bad vibes altogether. Suddenly she starts screaming, right? Like, so she like, they're having a good time, but she starts like dissociating and then starts freaking out and starts pushing him away. And he's like, what the fuck? And he's like trying to figure out what's happening. And then she starts screaming, ah, help, help. And he's like, oh my God, what? He like doesn't know what to do. So he just hits her. And she gets knocked out and he's like, oh, fuck. Like, what did I just do? I don't know what happened. And so he kind of like puts down her clothes all gently, puts her legs back to normal, tries to like set her up so she's nice. And he's like, I don't know what just happened, but I'm out of here. So he gets on his little moped, zips off, and then you see the dad, and you know, you can connect those moments. Now we see Vicente later on, and he is working with his mom, right? He's kind of a good kid. Like, you know, in the movie, they portray him as a good guy. Obviously, he made a mistake, and that was not a good thing that he did. Bad. But they try to portray him as like a gray area character. And so he leaves one day from whatever, and he says he's going to be back for dinner. So, you know, his mom knows he's going to be back. And as he leaves, somebody follows him out, right? And so he starts driving through the forest, like on his little bike. And this guy behind him runs him off the road. He falls over. He's like, what the fuck? And then a guy gets out of the truck, shoots him with a fucking tranquilizer dart. And he's like, oh, you know, gets kidnapped. Then we see Vicente locked up in a basement in like a cavernous kind of thing. He's living for like weeks on just water. Like he's like doesn't know what to do. There's a giant bowl of water. He's acting like a damn dog. Now you're kind of starting to put things together if you're watching the movie. You see Rawrrr come out and he's feeding him. He's like, you know, giving him what he needs, what he doesn't need. Obviously, he's getting revenge for his daughter. He knows that this person R-worded his daughter. And so he starts doing fucked up things to him, like, you know, putting on new skin. And then at some point with the help of some of his associates who don't know the situation fully, but know that this is like some weird, you know, underground sex change that they're doing. They give him a sex change, turn him into a woman. And then he says, from now on, you're known as Vera. You're no longer Vicente.
Ya no puedo seguir llamándote Vicente. A partir de hoy te llamarás Vera.
And so then from then on is when he starts living in the room upstairs, which was years ago. So now back in the present, it gets weird because obviously, you know, Rawrrr, like this man, Vicente, did something to your daughter, made her end her life. And now he's becoming affectionate to her because one, it looks like his own wife. And two, you know, they're spending so much time together. It's like getting weird. And then also Vera, like she's kind of into it, but like kind of not. I don't know. You can't really tell. But Maria, no matter what, is like, this is fucked up. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. He sends out for the first time. Vera gets to go out in public with Maria and gets to go shop and do whatever. During this time while they're gone, Rawrrr tells his associates, like, I'm no longer doing stuff here. Because basically what he's doing is he's like, I'm not doing underground surgeries here. I'm going to start spending time with my new wife, basically. Start a kind of a new, happier life, hopefully. But then his friend comes by and says, hey, I saw that there was a missing boy here, and it's a picture of Vicente. And he's like, I remember doing the surgery on this kid, da-da-da-da. And during this time, Vera overhears it and is like, what? Because they got back. And so she comes in and is like, if you're talking about me, fuck you, bitch. I want to be this. Bye. And like poses up with Rawrrr. And Robert's like, damn right, ho. And the guy's like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm out of here. Peace. But then she looks down and sees a picture of herself as Vicente and is like, oh shit, and kind of has like this mind-altering moment where she's like, what am I, right? During that time when the guy was threatening him, Rawrrr had pulled out a gun from his little drawer, was going to threaten him, But then he didn't have to because Vera came in, right? But Vera sees this gun, right? And she kind of takes note of that, right? And then later that night, they go to have sex, which is, they just started. I don't know. It was all too fast, but they go to have sex and she's like, oh, it hurts right now. I just got attacked by a fucking tiger. So, maybe not right now. And he's like, all right, it's fine. And he's like, very nice. He's like, whenever you're ready, we'll wait. And she goes, you know what? Actually, while I was out with your mom, I bought lubricant. Let me go grab it. And I think it's downstairs. And he's like, all right, cool. And while she's downstairs, obviously the gun's in the drawer. She fucking sneaks the gun into this purse, sneaks upstairs. So as she enters the room again, she puts down her purse and he's like, oh, honey, like, let's get ready to blast. And she's like, no way, Jose. Fucking pops his ass. Maria is sleeping downstairs, overhears something, is like, what the fuck? Gets her own little gun. She's like, goes upstairs, fucking taps on the door, boop, boop. What's going on in there? And Vera's not convincing. Goes, nothing, it's fine. She goes, I heard something. Is Robert okay? He's sleeping. She's like, what the fuck? So then she cracks open the door, fucking walks in with the gun, just this little old Spanish woman. Tries to look around. There's nobody there, right? She just sees her son. She's like, what the fuck? Starts looking around for the woman. And this is another comedic timing. It just cuts to the blanket laying over the bed, over the underneath of the bed. And suddenly an arm reaches out whoop, and then shoots her. Just not even looking at where she's aiming, just blasts her straight in the chest. And as Maria lays there dying on the ground, she's like, oh, she's like, I knew it. And so then Vera's like, I finally got my way. Let's get out of here. She steals the guy's car. She grabs money, clothes, whatever she needs, right? Gets in the car and then zips off, right? It cuts to the next day and it shows her mother's clothing shop that, they remember from years ago. And they walk in. She sees her friend and her mother talking in the back. And she's like almost to tears. And they're like, hello, do you need anything? They don't recognize her. And so it has this terribly sad moment where she's like, oh no, like they don't even know. And so then they have a private moment. Vera and the woman who works there, who's like his or her close friend, is like, I am Vicente. And the woman's like, what? Like, obviously not. Like, if somebody random comes into your place and says, like, I'm the person that's been missing and it's totally different, you're like, okay, you're a liar. But then they go, do you remember that dress that I told you to wear? And she unveils that she's wearing the dress. She's like, you told me to wear it and I said I never would. And that it would look better on you, and we were the only two there. So who else would know this other than Vicente? I am Vicente. And they both have a moment like, oh my God. And they kind of start to cry. And then the mom walks out and is like, what's going on? And it just has a moment where Vicente is like, I am Vicente. And that's where the movie ends. And you're like, whoa, brother. So this movie was based on a movie actually called Migale. It's quite different than the book. The book actually goes a lot more in depth with like their relationship and all of those plot lines rather than like the revenge aspect. And the ending is actually different. So if you're interested in a different ending, maybe you could try that out. But in this case, in the movie, the ending is just pure revenge. You know what I mean? It does remind me to something in the same vein, at least, to Old Boy. This movie is actually relatively new. It came out in 2011, which to me isn't that old, but obviously, it was still a time where being transgender was normalized-ish, like by then. This movie really harps on that, but in a way that's involuntary, which is very strange. Sex as an identity, but then in an involuntary way is such a interesting idea, at least for a movie. If you've ever seen Eyes Without a Face, the old black and white movie, it pulls a lot from that. But this movie's been out, obviously, like I said, for a while now. And him as a director has a bit of a cult following. So this movie, follows suit. It's one of those interesting, deranged movies where not everything needs to be perfect, but just the concepts kind of keep you going. I would say, obviously, I read the book, so I'm a little biased. I like the book a lot better. So it kind of flattened the movie a little bit for me. I liked the visuals, everything having to do with like Vera, basically, like where she stayed, how she drew on the walls, her suit, how they would view her through all the cameras. I thought that was really cool. Like I explained earlier as well, like a lot of the flashbacks and stuff about saying out loud exposition I felt a little lazy because it happened for like a long portion of the movie. Not like they did the one where she talked about it at the campfire and then backed that up pretty much exactly right after it with flashbacks of them while they were sleeping in bed. So it's like, apparently Quentin Tarantino named it as one of his choice for one of the best films of the 21st century. So that's something, I guess, but I would not agree. But also he had that weird take about Paul Dano recently. Like that's psychotic. I'm not even like Quentin Tarantino has a few good movies, but I think he's long past his prime personally. So if you guys want me to see one of his movies, let me know in the comments, please. Otherwise, let me know anything else you guys want me to see. I'm going to be trying to do these every week, so please try to subscribe so you can follow along. Thank you very much.